Hi, welcome back to KRISHNA'S Tech Then. This is the manual tutorial lesson number 4. In this lesson I am going to be covering what is meant by test life cycle. Here these are the contents of this test life cycle: test initiation, test planning, test designing, and the test closure. We will see in deep one by one what is meant by test initiation. Actually the test life cycle structure is like this: test initiation, planning, design, execution, next closure. At the time of execution, if any tester found any issues or defects, they are simply reporting to the developers itself. Again, that bugs will be taken by the developers itself. They are going to be accepting it. Again, they are going to be modifying that sprint. Again, they are going to be giving this new build itself. Like this cycle is going on. Execution, report defect reports to the developers itself. Modified sprint is getting, again testing itself. Next, finally, test closure. This cycle will be continuing. Here, software test life cycle versus the development life cycle. Here, like this, it will be happening. If we are in the agile mode, means we are going to be following like this itself. The same story till now we see in that software development life cycle modules itself, advanced modules, software bidding, kickoff meeting. Next one is the PO selection. PO is going to be collecting all the project backlog. Next one is that collection of all the user stories and from all the clients and the stakeholders itself. Next one is the sprint planning meeting. In this sprint planning meetings, selecting some of the user stories from all the user stories, which should be the sprint time. It should be based on the 15 days or else the 30-day sprint itself. Next, after completion of the sprint planning meeting, Scrum team design developers will be going to be starting the designing, coding, unit testing, integration, and the interface testing they are going to be conducting. Next, meanwhile, the parallelly Scrum team testers are going to be starting that test initiation, planning, designing. Next one is the execution itself. In this meanwhile, we are having the daily stand-up calls. In this stand-up calls, we are going to be discussing about what we need to do today itself, the work, regarding all the work part itself. Here at the time of that execution, if you are finding any bugs, simply reporting to the developers itself. Next one, they are going to be fixing those bugs and they are going to be giving us the modified sprint itself. Next one is we are going to be test closure itself. Next one is the sprint review meeting, sprint retrospective meeting in, and then we are going to be releasing it. Here the test initiation means software test life cycle. This is the first part. System or the sprint lifecycle process can start with the test initiation itself. In this stage, PO can prepare the test strategy document for the current sprint or software testing. Test strategy is also called as a methodology test approach. In sprint software strategy testing are the three types. One is exhaustive testing, another one is optimal testing, another one is ad hoc testing. Exhaustive testing is not possible, so and ad hoc testing techniques, we at that lack of time, at that time only we are going to be using ad hoc testing techniques. In the day to day we are going to be using that optimal testing techniques itself. Here is an example for the exhaustive testing, optimal testing, and the ad hoc testing. Exhaustive testing means we are checking any of that what all is. Here I am considering as in India, the voter age should be uh, minimum 18 years. That that is the valid to get to cast his vote itself, means to register his vote or else to cast his vote. If I am giving minus input to 15, it is invalid. 16 to 60, it is a valid. 61 to plus is invalid. Here I am getting here I am giving the cutoff like this. After 61 years age, the user is not going to be casting his vote, like that. Optimal testing means minimum minus 1, minimum value, minimum plus 1, max minus 1, max value, max plus 1. Like this, with the reasonable values, we are going to be doing the optimal testing itself. Ad hoc means we are simply validating that where only the main scenario. If here the age is 16 means we are simply passing the 16. Next one is the cutoff age is 60. Both values we are simply checking itself, not more than that values. In general, exhaustive testing is impossible. Ad hoc testing is not reasonable. Due to this, Scrum team are following the optimal testing to conduct better testing itself. Here the optimal strategy document format in IEEE standards, 829 standards itself. In that test strategy document, what we are having means unique name or as number or as title itself, and the scope and objective of that one, importance of the testing in the current sprint, business issues, budget allocation for testing. Here is an example for that. Next one is the TRM, means test responsibility matrix. Here we are having the list of the topics itself: functional, usability, compatibility, hardware configuration, performance, security, multi-languagity. Next one is the roles and responsibilities. Here PO can define the roles in the Scrum testers and specific responsible for each role itself. Scrum Master, preparing the test plan, conducting the meeting, responsible for the status reporting. Senior testers in the QA, preparing the test scenarios and cases and with the test data itself. Quality assurance engineer, he is going to be reviewing the scenarios, cases and data, responsible for the defect tracking itself. Junior testers, executing the test cases on sprint. Quality control engineer, defects and reported to the developers itself. Test automation and the testing tools. PO can decide need for in current sprint. What are the tools and what we need to do? Those all things. Defect reporting and tracking itself. PO can responsible to define the communication channels between the developers and the testers for defect reporting and the tracking itself. Here, if you are sending any defect reports or else sending defect in the mail means whom we need to copy and whom we need to send, all these things. Here tester is going to be mailing to the developer itself. In this CC we need to mention the stakeholders, POs and the Scrum Master itself. Configuration management and the test management. PO is responsible to create the configuration repository in server computer. This repository is full of Scrum Team developers and Scrum Team testers to store their deliverables itself. Testing measurements and the metrics. PO is responsible to define the measurements and the metrics to calculate efficiency of the tester during the testing itself. Example: 15 to 20 test scenarios with the test case preparation per day 8 hours. 10 to 15 scenarios with the test case execution per day 8 hours. 3 to 5 defects detection per day 8 hours. Training need. PO can decide need for the training to testers for on sprint backlog user stories if required. PO can prepare the test strategy by using MS Office itself, MS Word. or open Office 365. PO can prepare the optimal test strategy. PO can follow the IEEE 829 standards. PO can get approval on the strategy from the stakeholders. Test planning. After completion of the test initiation by PO, corresponding Scrum Master can start the test planning. Scrum Master can follow the below workbench itself. Test planning means sprint backlog, sp- SBL user stories, sprint backlog user stories, test strategies like this. If needed, the changing the Scrum team, identifying tactical risks, preparing a test plan, reviewing the test plan. Changing Scrum team if required means here test planning process can start with testing team. Changes with respect to team complexity in sprint backlog user stories like shown below. Client servers and web-based software 3 is to 1. Example banking, insurance, healthcare, e-commerce, embedded software and the hardware and the network related. Protocol devices, drivers, etc. Artificial intelligence software means 1 is to 1 developers and the testers. Robotics, expert games, satellites means 1 is to 7. 1 developer, 7 testers. Like this, we are going to be changing the team itself if required. Identifying the tactical risks means after completion of the team level changes, corresponding Scrum Master can concentrate risk identification related to testing itself. Examples here: lack of time, lack of resource, lack of documentation, delays in delivering, unexpected problems, lack of seriousness, commitment to developers, sudden change in the user stories or requirements documents, specifications, lack of communications or lack of budget. Preparing the test plan here. After completion of the team level changes and risk identification, corresponding Scrum Master can start plan preparation in IEEE 829 format. Test plan document ID, unique number, name as the title or name as the title itself, introduction about the current sprint or software, features, list of all modules in the current sprint or software, features to be tested, list of the modules to be tested, features not to be tested, list of the modules not to be tested, already tested in the earlier sprint or in the previous sprint. The above 3, 4, 5 will be coming on the subtest plan and what to test. Test strategy. Attaching test strategy given by the PO itself. Test environment. List of required hardware and the software in current sprint or software. Test deliverables. List of documents to be prepared by testers in current sprint or software testing. Example: test scenarios, test case, test data, defect report, automation process, and the status report. What is the entry criteria of that project? Of any project, what is the entry criteria means test design was finishing, means test scenarios, cases, and data were baseline. Test environment was establishing, requiring the hardware or software support. Sprint was released from the developers. This is the entry criteria. What is the suspension criteria? When to interrupt testing. Major bugs in sprint or showstoppers itself, minor bugs, reporting pending quality gaps, test environment was abandoned. This is the suspension criteria. What is meant by exit criteria? To stop testing, all modules were tested, time was exceeded, all major bugs were closed. Above 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sub-test plans are how to test. Next one is the staff. Name of the testers related to current sprint or software. Responsibilities. Work allocation in tester in any of the below ways itself. Here FT means functional testing, UT means usability testing. Scheduling the date and time. Risk and the responsibility. List of risks or solutions to overcome it. Approvals to approve the project sign of POs and the stakeholders. IEEE 819 standards test plan documents can divide into four parts: how to test, what to test, when to test, who to test. Scrum Master can use MS Word or else OpenOffice Word to prepare the test plan document. Next one is the test design itself. After completion of the test plan initiation by PO, test planning by Scrum Master, and the Scrum testers can start design. Studying all the user stories in the sprint backlog. In test design, testers job can start with a studying all the user stories in the current sprint backlog. Here, every Scrum team testers can follow any one of the below ways: scanning from the SME, scanning from the PO, studying user stories, and getting clarity from the stakeholders and the PO. Study user stories and explore it. Preparing the test scenarios and the test cases for the responsible module for functional cases. After completion of all the user stories, corresponding testers can starting the scenarios and test case writing responsible user stories based on the functionalities. Here, test scenario means activity to be tested in the sprint. Test case means condition to be validated in the corresponding activity. While preparing the scenarios and cases for responsible modules for functional testing, corresponding Scrum team testers can follow IEEE 829 standards or black box testing techniques and the regular expressions. From IEEE 829 standards, test cases document can have a below the format. While preparing the scenarios and cases for the responsible modules, functionalities corresponding Scrum team testers can follow black box testing techniques to write optimal test cases. These techniques are also called as closed box testing techniques or functional testing techniques. Here is a template for that IEEE 829 standards for the test cases. To draft the test cases: one software, one condition, one test case, one test scenario, one user module, and the sprint means one software. These are all called as multi sprints, mean multi user modules, multi test scenarios, multi test cases. Here in this black box testing techniques, first one is that boundary value analysis. This technique is used to write the optimal test cases for the size or range of the input or output fields in the sprint. Example: age is between 16 to 60 by optimal test case. Here optimal testing values we are going to be writing like this: test cases and the test data like this we need to give minimum minus 1, minimum value, minimum plus 1, max minus 1, max value, and the max plus 1. If we are passing like this means minimum minus 1 means if we are giving the 15, it should throw an error message invalid like this. Invalid age, you are going to be invalid age is entered like that. Minimum means 16, it is a valid. Minimum plus 1 means 17, it is also valid. Max minus 1, 59, valid. Max 60, valid. Max plus 1, again it should throw an error message giving the invalid age like that. ECP means equivalence class partition techniques. This technique is used to write the optimal test cases related to type of input or output field, sprint or the software. Example here: four four cases as follow: numeric valid, alphabet invalid, special characters invalid, blank invalid. Next one is the decision table. This technique is used to write the test cases related to mapping in between the input and the output itself. Example: login operation and the optimal test cases. User ID valid in database, password valid in database, expected output is next page will be displayed. Invalid in database, valid in database, error message will display. Valid in database, password is invalid in database, error message will be displayed. User ID is invalid in database, password ID is invalid in the database, error message will displayed. User ID is blank, password is filled, error message will be displaying. User ID is filled, password is blank, expected output is error message will be displaying. User ID is blank, password is blank, error message will be displayed as the expected output. Next one is that orthogonal array technique. This technique is used to remove repeated test cases in existing test cases. Here user ID, password and the expected output. This is the table here. We are having the valid in database, valid in database. Next one, expected output is next page will be displayed. User ID is invalid in the database. Password is invalid in the database. Valid password is valid in database. What will be the expected output means error message will be displayed. User ID is valid in database, password is invalid in database. Error message will be displayed as expected output. User ID invalid in database, password is invalid in database. Error message will be going to be displayed itself. User ID is blank filled, password is filled. Error message will be going to be displaying here as expected output. User ID is filled and that password ID is blank filled. Error message will be filled. Here blank filled and the blank filled error message will be displaying. Here to remove the repeated cases to save the time, we are using the orthogonal testing techniques. This is next one is the state transition flow. This technique is used to write the test cases in order with the respective functionality in the user storage itself. Next one is error guessing technique. This technique is used to guess in upcoming sprints depends upon the past experience while preparing test cases and the responsible modules on functional testing. By following the 829 standards, IEEE 829 standards and the black box testing techniques. Corresponding Scrum team testers can follow the regular expression to write those test cases in short form in general regular expressions in the mathematical notations. They are providing the constant meaning to all and easy to write. They are as follows here. One square bracket means one position. In the square brackets, alphabets in the lower case A to Z means it is going to be taking one position itself. If I want to provide any uppercase alphabets means in the square box itself, in the square brackets I am going to be giving that uppercase alphabets A to Z itself. It is going to be considering one position. Like this, the numeric digits also one alphabet. Here is the example how it is going to be taking RAM in the one square bracket. R is going to be taking as one position, A is going to be taking as one position, and M like this. Any one it is going to be taking here. If I am going to be defining in that square bracket, RAM means. If I want to get any for particular word that positions level means R for one, I need to keep R in one position, A in one position, M in one position. The output I am going to getting as RAM like this. These are all the regular expression testing so symbols itself, the testing we are going to be using while writing the test cases. Next one is the preparation of test scenarios and the test cases for the responsible modules for the functional cases. After completion of scenarios and the cases preparation for responsible modules, functional testing corresponding testers can prepare the test data for those cases. That is, in general, functional test case are of two types such as values and the condition. For value based test cases, no need to prepare the test data itself. For condition based test cases, testers can prepare the test data. This test data is in two types such as model data or real data. Here, while preparing that data based on the conditions, test cases corresponding testers can follow this below process itself. Condition related means studying the user stories, preparing the test scenarios, cases and the data. Here next one is the classifying the prepared functional test cases, their value basis and the condition basis. Condition based means we are providing the model data and we are using that real data which is which came from the customer site itself. Preparing for test scenarios and a test case for the responsible module for functional cases. After completion of the test data preparation for conditional based functional test cases, Scrum team testers can concentrate on the non-functional test design itself. In this stage, Scrum team testers can concentrate on usability testing as first. Usability expectation from user stories of uh, online banking system, project and login and the money transfer in the is in user-friendly modules itself. Usability test scenario or the test cases like this: test case document ID, test scenarios, in test suite ID, and the next one is a priority. Usability case is always having the low priority itself. You can find the examples here. Compatibility expectations. From online banking site, user stories, login, and the money transfer modules need to run in the Windows, Linux, Mac computers, and the Android or iOS and Windows Mobile by opening using Internet Explorer, Chrome, or Firefox, Opera like browsers itself. Preparing the test scenarios and cases for complexity, compatibility, and the portability testing itself. Here is the template for that: test case document ID, test scenario, test suite ID, priority, environment. Test procedure is like this: test environment, step number, step description, test case, and the expected output. Here all the compatibility or portability priority will be medium itself. Next one is the hardware configuration. From the user stories of online banking site, login and the money transfer modules are ready to run in bus or ring, hub or topology. We are going to be following this here in the in this type of networks itself. Here is the template for it: test case document ID, test scenario, test suite ID, priority, test environment, and another one is the test procedure itself. We can follow ring, hub, bus, any one of the network itself. Next one is the performance test expectation. From the acceptance criteria of user stories, online banking site will be accessed by 1000 users at a time. Preparing the test scenarios and the cases for the online banking site to conduct performance testing. Here is the template for it. The priority should be medium. Next one is the test design. Like this: formal meeting. After completion of the test design, Scrum team testers can concentrate on the test execution. This execution process can start with a formal meeting in between the developers and the testers in front of the Scrum masters and the product owner. In this meeting, corresponding people can discuss software sprint and the build release, defect reporting, build version control. In general, software sprint release in the possible as shown in the below: server, configuration repository, developer base, software, and the test base. Developer is going to be uploading their build in the soft base itself. Testers is going to be downloading from the soft base itself. After completion of it, they are going to be keeping in testers environment itself. That is the test base itself. After completion of that, they are going to be starting the execution itself from the testers environment. In general, defect reporting process is going on between the developers and the testers as shown below here. Defect reporting: testers to in mail, developers carbon copy in mail means stakeholders, POs and the scrum master. using MS Outlook or Lotus Notes like any internal mailing, or using the Jira, LM, Bugzilla, Bug Tracker, Mantis, etc. tools. In general, developers can assign the versions numbers. Build testers can distinguish the sprint old versions and the new versions itself. Like this, the build versions 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 like that. When we are going to be giving the client means 1.4 like that. Here is the levels of test execution. Sprint 1, smoke testing manually, real testing manual. Sprint 2, developer. Again we are finding that in real testing, in the manual, we are finding some bugs reporting to the developers itself. Again they are going to be modifying the sprint. Again they are going to be giving us another sprint itself. Next one, in this sprint 2, we are going to be conducting the smoke test through automation itself. Retesting automation, sanity testing automation, regression testing automation. Further real testing is going to be doing in the manual itself. First time we are going to be doing everything in the manual itself, real testing. Next onwards itself, we are going to be using the automation itself. Like this, the sprint cycles are going on. Establishing the test environment. After completion of formal meeting with the developers and the levels of the text execution finalization, corresponding Scrum team testers can take help of the hardware team or network team to establish a test environment with required hardware and the software. What is here we are going to be calling as the test bed. Means what is meant by test bed or test harness. Means test designing, scenarios, test cases, and the test data plus test environment. That is calling as the test bed itself. Smoke testing. Here in the step 1, we are going to be downloading and launching the sprint from the build from the servers itself. Next one is collecting few positive test cases, few positive functional test cases related to the main modules of the sprint itself. We are going to next one, executing above collected cases on after one after other manually on the sprint. Next step is, if all executed cases are passed, then automation those cases for further modified build, smoke testing, and go to the real testing itself. If any one case was failed, then rejecting that sprint, waiting for the working for the stable build itself. In general, Scrum team testers can conduct smoke tests on the sprint in one cabin system instead of all the system test environment. Here is the server software downloading and launching sprint. During the smoke testing, we are going to be sitting in one table itself. One smoke testing is the team level of the at one system itself. Smoke test is also called as the test acceptance testing or the build verification testing, test ability testing. For smoke testing, Scrum team testers can collect a few positive functional cases which are fixed set for any modified sprint smoke testing. Due to this reason, Scrum team testers can go to the automation for smoke testing in future cycles. Real testing or comprehensive testing or complete testing. When sprint is stable, Scrum team testers can download or launch that stable sprint build into every system of the test environment. Every Scrum team testers can conduct corresponding test cases on one after other to detect defects in responsible modules of that sprint. Like this, the example. In this stage, every tester can prepare the test log document on daily basis. This log provided results passed, failed, or blocked itself. Blocked means postponed yet to be executed sprints. Error, defect, bugs in and failures itself. Developer finds a problem in coding is called as error or flaw. Testers find a problem in software called as defect or issue or incident or ticket. testers reported a defect was accepted by developers called a bug. Customer sites are the client side people face a problem in software called failure or missed bug or latent bug. Defect report from IEEE 819 standards. In real testing, testers can execute all cases one after other by comparing expected values of test cases and actual values of the sprint or the software. If any mismatch in between them, we can stop further test cases execution and then prepare the defect report like shown below. First one is the defect ID, description of that defect, build version of build version ID, future, failure test case, test environment. Next one is the reproducible. Next one is that attaching the test cases document. If no attachments, no test cases document and the screenshots, number of attachment test cases and the screenshot itself, severity of that, the seriousness of the defect with respect to the tester, high or critical or showstopper. Without fixing this defect, testers not able to continue further testing itself. Severity, medium or major, able to continue further testing but not mandatory to fix it. It is not a showstopper to the tester itself. Non-functional testing bugs, low and the minor, able to continue further testing but may or may not be fixing. Next one is that usability testing bugs. Priority, the importance of the bug fixing with respect to customer or the client in the priority itself. Example, high, medium, low. Status of bug. First, new means reporting bug for the first time. Reopen means reporting for the second time of the same bug detected by name of the tester or employer ID, detection on date and the time, detection on the reporting assigned to the developer itself. Like this we need to assign it. Suggestion fix optional. Tester suggestions to fix a defect to developer. In general, testers can use the three ways to report defect reports to the developers itself: via emails or defect reporting tools like Bugzilla, Bug Tracker, Mantis, ALM. ALM and the Jira are the test management tools itself. Defect tracking process. Testers report defect to the developers. Developer can join with the Scrum Masters and the PO to track the defect. Due to lack of information or duplicate, if it is accepted means due to lack of accepted means next step will be going to be classifying the defect itself. If it is not accepted means due to the lack of information, duplicate of the other defect itself. Next, if it is accepted, next step is the classifying the defect itself. Testers can modify test case along with the test data. Test case related defect means. Next one is the test data related defect. Testers can modify the test data. Next one is the test environment related defect means. Hardware team can fix this problem itself. Defect accepted as a bug, coding and the related and assigned to the developer itself. Bug fixing or coding related to defect fixing. When a defect was accepted by developer as a software mistake, that defect is called a bug, and developer is responsible to fix that bug. Developers and the Scrum here Developers and the Scrum Master can conduct root cause analysis to identify the wrong areas. Developers can perform changes in the coding to fix that bug. Developer can conduct unit testing on the modified coding areas and testing in it between the modified coding areas and the related areas. Developers can release new version number to modified sprint and place in that soft base of server computer. Developers send a software release note SRN to the testers itself. Retesting, standard tests, regression testing. In general, testers can study software release note to understand the modification performed by the developers in corresponding modified sprint. Depends on that information, testers can plan retesting, standard testing, and the regression testing from the below diagram like this. Smoke testing: execution of few positive functional test cases to ensure that modified sprint is working or not. Retesting means execution of the previous failed tests on modified sprint to ensure that modified sprint is correctly modified or not. Previously failed test case was failed again on modified sprint. Testers can report the same defect to the developers as reopen. Next one is Sante testing. Execution of previously passed test cases on the modified sprint to ensure the tests are passed again on the modified sprint also. If previously passed tests are failed now on the modified sprint, we can report new defect to the developers itself. Sante testing is calling as a build acceptance testing. Here previously passed test cases are most related to previously failed test cases. Regression test means execution of the previously passed tests on the modified sprint to ensure those tests are passed again on the modified sprint. It is not going to be affected any other coding areas itself. The execution is in the happy path itself, not in the any unhappy path. If we found any bugs, we can report new defect to the developers itself. Here is the bug life cycle. Testers, PO, Scrum Master, developers, and the tester. Here who is going to be opening the bug itself? Tester is going to be opening and he is the responsible to close that bug. Developer is going to be accepting as a bug. His responsibility is going to fix that bug itself. Tester is going to be reporting a bug opened as expected, accepted as bug, fixing, correctly fixed or not, then closing. If he is going to be rejected, he is going to be rejected as a bug means getting the more information. Again we are going to be reopening it. Agreed that it's not a bug. Simply we are going to be closing as a tester. Next one is he is going to be accepting a bug and he is not going to be fixing it. Again we are going to be testing on it, and this time the open bug is not correctly fixed. Then we are going to be reporting as reopened. Next one is the deferred bug. Accepting as a bug but fixing was postponed. New, here is that cycle will be here like that: new, deferred, rejected, closed, like this. Rejected, closed, reopened, fixing. Here is the bug life cycle. In the test cycle means the time gap between the two sprints. Release from the developers to the testers itself. What is meant by bug age or bug triage? Means the gap between the defect reporting to the bug closing via retesting or standard testing and the regression testing. That is called as bug age or bug triage. We can see here in the diagram itself very clearly. First one, in the sprint 1, test cycle 1, smoke testing manually, real testing manually, finding defects, reporting to the developers. Developer is going to be fixing it and he is going to be releasing a new build itself. Smoke testing is a automation itself, retesting is automation, standard testing is automation, regression testing is automation. The time gap between the real testing in the sprint cycle 1 to the regression automation testing, this is called as the bug age or bug triage. Next is the test closure itself. After completion of all the test cycles, corresponding PO and the Scrum Master can join with the testers to decide that testing was enough in this closure meeting. POs and the Scrum Master can decide with the testers to get the some inputs or test closure. Coverage analysis like module wise coverages, testing topic wise coverages, stability in the sprint software, duration, and the percentage of bugs. Analysis of deferred bugs. Those bugs are postponed or not. After completion of a test closure review meeting, testers can plan and conduct final regression testing, post-mortem testing, or pre-acceptance testing, or confidence testing. During this test, testers can retest the doubtful modules to find lucky defects or the golden defects. To fix these bugs, Scrum team can follow the two ways itself. Fixing as early as possible, go to release sprint, or go to release sprint, release the sprint later patch to fix it. They can follow these two ways itself. After completion of the final regression testing for golden defects, corresponding testers can sit with the Scrum Masters to prepare the traceability metrics. User stories wise, login functionalities, how many tests are conducted, how many are passed, how many are failed, for those defect IDs are there or not, and the closed or the deferred bugs, and the comments of that each one. Thank you friends. Thank you for watching. This is the manual testing tutorial 4 was completed. Please like, subscribe my channel. Thank you.